Now we're going to have a look at the gyro and the colour sensors. So on my robot I have a gyro which is just inside next to the brain, and I also have a colour sensor, and the colour sensor is mounted on the bottom of the robot. You can see it there with the LED on underneath, so that it's mounted about 5 millimeters off the ground, and it's pointing down and looking straight at the field. And the idea is we're going to be looking for the difference between the white areas and the black lines, so we can see where the black lines are. Okay, a little note about the colour sensor. It works in 3 modes. It has 3 colour, 12 colour and greyscale. And you can see those modes in the robot setup screen. Here's my colour sensor. If I click on the settings, I can change the mode from greyscale, 3 colour or 12 colour. The difference is 3 colour, the colour sensor is operating in colour mode, and it can detect red, green and blue and return values for those. 12 colour, very much the same, apart from it has 12 different shades that it can distinguish between. And greyscale is looking at black and white essentially, but all of the shades of grey in between. And it returns in MODKIT a percentage value, where 0 is completely black and 100 is completely white, and all of the shades of grey in between will be the varying percentage on that scale. We're going to use greyscale mode because it's the black lines that I want to detect. When you change mode, it will give you this little warning. What it means is if you've already been in colour mode and created a program, and you're using some blocks that say, for example, detect a red object, if you change to grayscale mode, those blocks will be deleted because you can't detect colours in grayscale mode. Okay, I'm going to show you a little trick so that you can see what these sensors are reading. And what I'm going to do is create a little program that prints some values to the screen. The LCD screen on the brain is really handy because we can use it for debugging. We can kind of get some feedback from the robot so that we know what the sensors are seeing, what values they're returning, and then we can use those in our program. Right, so I'm going to go to the blocks mode on the brain tab. I'm going to create a program from a when start block with a forever loop, so a continuous loop. What I want to do is, if I go to output, I want to print some things to the screen. I want to print, firstly, my gyro value. We'll have a look at that. Then I'm going to move down to the next line. There's 5 lines that you can display data on the brain. On the next line, I'm going to print the colour sensor value, the grayscale value. Okay, so if I scroll down here to the sensing section and look at other components, I've got my gyro and colour sensor, and gyro, angle in degrees, that will fit nicely in that hole there. So I'm printing my gyro angle in degrees to the screen, and I'm going to print my grayscale percentage to the screen as well. I want to clear the LCD before I move on. What I want to do is give it a brief pause, so I'm going to drop a wait there and change that to 0.1 of a second, and then back to my output and clear the LCD. The reason for that is it takes longer to display stuff than it does to clear the LCD, and so if we're just continually clearing it, we'll never see this data. So we put the data up, pause for 0.1 of a second, then we clear it. What it means is you've got time to see that display on the screen before it's cleared. Okay, so you won't be able to see this on my LCD screen, but give this a go on your robots. Download that, play it, and you'll see the values for those sensors displayed on the screen. So have a look at the gyro, see what that's doing. The gyro, let's say it returns a value in degrees, and as I rotate my robot counterclockwise, the value increases. So from when the gyro is reset, it's 0 degrees straight ahead through 90 degrees, so 90 degrees there, 180 facing back towards me, and so on all the way around to 359 degrees and then back to 0 again. The colour sensor, like I said earlier, detects a low value on a black surface, high value on a white surface. So I'm just going to put my colour sensor over the black line, and I can tell you that is returning a value of 3 out of 100. So my black line's a 3, I'm going to make a note of that. If I move it over the white part of the field, I'm getting a value of 47. The field isn't actually white, it's quite grey. If I put my sheet of paper underneath, sheet of white paper under there, that value then increases even more towards 100. Right. What we're going to do now is use that in a program. So I'm going to just make my robot go forwards until it sees the black line and then stop. I'm going to use a few broadcast commands for this. Now there are a lot of ways to achieve the same thing in MODKIT. I'm just going to show you one, and you can play around and try and work out some of the other ways of doing what it is that I'm going to do here. But the first thing we're going to do is create a new broadcast command called forward. Then, so we need to tell our robot what to do at robot forward. So that's going to do something under the drivetrain. So under the drivetrain, when robot forward, I'm going to set the robot off driving forward. Not by any particular distance, because we just want to keep going until it hits the black line. So we're just using the forward. Now we want to check for the black line. So I'm going to put an infinite loop in, a forever loop, an if statement. And what I'm looking for, the criteria I'm looking for, is if the colour sensor is seeing the black line. And when we calibrated the sensor, when we checked, we saw that it was approximately 3, value of 3, and for the black line, and the white was somewhere in the high 40s, which means that I can safely assume that anything below 10 as a value is going to be the black line. So I'm going to use, under my operators section, the less than command. Because I want to say if the colour sensor value is less than 10, then do something. So if I go to my sensing section and other components, colour sensor, the greyscale percentage. So if the greyscale percentage is less than 10, then broadcast another command, which is robot stop. Got that yet, so we need to create a new command. Stop. And under the drivetrain, when robot stop, then we want to make just that, stop. Also, in this loop, I'm going to put one more block in, which is called break. You'll find it in the control section after the broadcast. What the break command does is it jumps out of any loop that you're currently in, whether that be a while loop or a forever loop or whatever it might be. As long as it's a loop, the break command will jump out of this loop and then carry on from this position. So then if I had further things to do in the program, they could be tacked onto the bottom here. So what the program's going to do, when I run it, broadcast robot forward, which will be heard by the drivetrain, because that's listening for that, robot forward, and it will make us start driving. Then we're going to drop into this infinite loop, and it will keep going round it until the value of grayscale sensor is less than 10, so that means it's over a black line, then it's going to broadcast robot stop, which the drive chain will hear, and stop, break, and drop out to this point. We can check that we have actually dropped out of there by, let's make the brain do something when it drops out. Make it play a noise. We've got sounds here. Play a sound. Play the alarm when it gets to the end. But we know it has actually dropped out of this forever loop. Okay, download that to the robot. Now the colour sensor on my robot is just in front of the rear wheels, about here. And so as it drives forwards, the first black line it's going to encounter is here. So what we're looking for, let's use a white marker, borrow this part from the field. My colour sensor is about here, so you can see where it is. So when this white mark is over this line, is the first black line it's going to get to, the robot should stop. Let's give it a go. You may have noticed that the program didn't actually work, and I've just done a little bit of debugging and found out what the problem was. So what was happening was, let me just put the program back to as it originally was and explain the debugging process because it's useful. So ignore these two blocks over here for the moment. This is how our program was originally. So broadcasting robot forward into the forever loop, and once the colour sensor got a grayscale value of less than 5, then it should stop the robot and brake and play the alarm to say that we've got to the end. Now what was actually happening was it was playing the alarm immediately and the robot never moved, which meant it was fairly obvious that it was dropping straight out of this loop. It was never getting in the forever loop. Now, why should that be the case? Because it's over the white line, it's over the white part of the field, and so the value should be much higher than 5. It shouldn't be breaking this loop. So the first thing I did was I thought, well, let's debug. Let's see what the colour sensor is actually seeing. So I just dropped a little line in here, and this will just scroll straight off the screen because it's going to keep printing one after the other as it goes around this loop, but it will give me a chance just to quickly see what the value was, and given that the program is ending straight away, I'm guessing this will probably only print once. So I downloaded it, printed. It did indeed print to the screen just the once, and the program ended, and it was showing a value of 0.5. And I thought, oh, that's a bit weird because it's over the white space. We know that's around 47. It should be much, much higher than that. So what I realized was that when the program is initialized, it takes a fraction of a second for the color sensor to come online. And until it comes online, it's actually returning a low value. And so this part of the program happens before the color sensor has actually started working properly. So it sees a value of less than 5 and ends the program. So what I decided to do was, before our robot starts moving, put a little wait in there of 1 second, which just gives the colour sensor enough time to come online before the robot starts moving forward. So now if I download this, remember this white marker here is roughly where my colour sensor is, so the white marker should be over this line. There we go. So you can see it's roughly over the top there. In fact, it's pretty accurate. And so that little 1 second pause at the start made all the difference. If I take that 1 second pause out, the exercise, the program doesn't work properly. because the color sensor wasn't online, and therefore it never managed to work properly. So let's just put that back in, give it another try. One second pause, and there we go. So that shows the value of debugging your data to the screen. So I think that was actually a very useful exercise. Even though the program didn't work initially how we expected, we managed to overcome it by using some simple debugging techniques.